Alright. We're going to start with San Andreas, which, okay, listen. I had heard not very good things about the advertisements. But I was kind of looking forward to it anyway, because the only thing I knew about it was an earthquake movie starring Dwayne Johnson. And yeah, the disaster movie genre doesn't have a perfect record by any means.
No.
But there are some good ones out there. And when you have the charm and charisma of Dwayne Johnson in the center of one, and then the movie actually started, and I was kind of getting this vibe that we were going to have kind of something really kind of old-fashioned that kind of went back to the ones that are actually good. They're, like maybe 2 or 3 only come to mind, but they do exist. And that's the important part. Because I'm one of like 3 people alive that actually cared for Daylight, the Stallone movie, in the tunnel. People hate that movie, but I thought it was perfectly fine. So, yeah, okay. Basically, after a while, though, I came to the conclusion that it is very, very shocking to me that, number 1, this movie is not directed by Roland Emmerich. Number 2, this movie is not directed by Michael Bay, either. And number 3, it wasn't released in, like, 1998. If either of those had taken place, this movie probably would have gone down as, like, a guilty pleasure classic if it had come out in, like, the 90s. And had a name director attached to it. I'm not quite... I think Brad Payton is the guy's name. I'm pretty sure I've seen something that he did, but I couldn't tell you what it is off the top of my head. And, when I say, like, Roland Emmerich and or Michael Bay, that's... It might as well be, honestly.
Yeah.
Because, here... Okay, just stop me if you heard this one. We have our action hero. I thought we were going to have... Well, first off, this is one of those movies that starts with... you know how action movies tend to want to start with a scene that kind of introduces our action hero as, you know, action hero, but it really has no bearing on the rest of anything. It's just kind of an opening. I thought they were going to do the cliffhanger thing, but a girl flies off a cliff in her car, and then he has to save her, and then that's like a whole 10 to 15 minute opening scene, and it only serves to just introduce him as this indestructible hero. And he does the ultimate he has the ultimate action hero introduction. I swear to God. Where it's the woman from The Good Wife, and she is a reporter of sorts, and she's in the helicopter with them, and she's interviewing them, and she starts to talk to Dwayne Johnson's character who's in the front, and we don't see his face right away. He's going to be revealed, and it's going to be this big deal. And when she asks him, you know, how he does it, and, you know, like, how he can go through the perils and the dangers and deal with all of that, he turns around, he's got his helmet on, he's got his sunglasses on, and in that ultimate hero voice, he gives the, "It's just what the job is, ma'am," delivery. That might almost be the exact line. So that kind of threw at you immediately what kind of movie this was, so for a while there, I was kind of forgiving of it, but that only took it so far. Because it kind of kept doing its thing, and it stopped being, charmingly cheesy after a while. The latter part of that just kind of took over, and it didn't return.
Universal fans will definitely notice that Dwayne is basically playing his character from Mother Nature, from the Disaster movie.
Now, another plot point, he's got the estranged wife. Of course he does. And it's Carla Gugino this time. And not only that, but the estranged wife has a rich and douchey boyfriend. Are you shocked?
Of course not.
And, lastly, to top off this piece of the plot, if you will, he has an attractive daughter that needs to be saved when all destruction goes You really feel like you've seen a few movies like this, right? It just kind of takes them all and brings them in here.
Last action hero.
And there's a lot more than that, but we'll just kind of go one thing at a time here. First off, when you're talking about a disaster movie, you should probably bring up the effects. This is one of those ones where they can't seem to make up their mind. Some of the effects are kind of impressive, and some others aren't. There's a lot, especially when they're in the boats at the end, there's a lot of green screen that's really obvious. But then when you see like the buildings toppling over and stuff like that, that looks fine, and those overhead shots of the destruction happening, those work fine. But sometimes it seemed like they got kind of cheap going into it, and it was this very uneven thing going on, which is not good when your effects are basically the star of your movie. That's a weird thing to do. And there are more. Hooray! There are more characters in this that I'm sure you recognize. We have the daughter, and she goes with Rich Douchey boyfriend to this meeting where she meets a dude that's about her age, and wouldn't you know it, instant connection. And if that's not enough for you, if that doesn't sound like something you've heard before that you're really, really tired of and annoys the shit out of you, Instant Connection dude has a little brother, and Instant Connection dude's little brother is charming,
ish.
Well, in quotes.
Yeah.
One-liner dropping kid. Because everybody loves the kid, the kid that acts way too mature for his age, that everybody's, just head over heels in love with. That's always there to say a funny quip at the end of every scene. Because everybody fucking loves that, right? Everybody loves that kid.
Especially you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, wonderful. And there's really not one single thing in this movie that happens that you can't point out from a mile away. We have bring in our token character actor to, you can say, hey, it's that guy, and he can make money, because normally he doesn't make movies that do. So, we have Paul Giamatti as our scientist, and his job is to talk about science and look at graphs and tell us numbers and statistics, and then scream that everybody's gonna fucking die. That's
Yeah, that's pretty much what he does.
Way to go. Now, here's the thing. I know with my love for a certain other movie that came out last year, people are going to point fingers at me and say you are the last person who needs to be criticizing Paul Giamatti for taking small parts in big budget blockbuster movies. I know, but I'm not criticizing him. I'm just saying that's what they did with him, as expected. And when you look at the credits, it's like as soon as we saw him, we hear his voice first, and he's showing a presentation in like a college class, like a lecture. And then there's Paul Giamatti on the screen. And just in my head, I immediately thought, wow, this is an and credit if I ever saw one. He was either going to be second or he was going to be and he was and. I got it right the first time. And of course, Giamatti also has the kind of partner, kind of best friend, who's introduced, and it shows that they're, really happy in their partnership, just so he can die in the very next scene, like 5 minutes after he's been introduced. And they try to get sympathy points after the fact. As soon as Giamatti gets back from that disaster that happened on the Hoover Dam, after he comes back from that, we see a picture of them together, like on his desk. And you're reaching for your sympathy points a little too late there, but whatever. Just keep reaching. What else do we have? Let's just go more into cliches, because there's really nothing else to this movie. It was a cliche checklist, and then it ended. That was it. Let's see. You probably know this one really well. that moment where an explosion happens and then a character falls to the ground, and we get it from their perspective by the sound going out and then coming in as just this high-pitched sound, like they're gone temporarily deaf. That scene's in this movie too, as I'm sure you probably guessed. Basically the point is if you go into this movie expecting, like, to see a movie that you've seen about 10 or 20 times, which I know some people will do, then you're probably going to have a great time, because this is exactly, you know exactly every single point that this movie is going for. Like, I cannot think of a single scene in this movie that I cannot relate to a scene from another movie, or multiple movies. To me, that is not a good thing at all. But but you know, if this is your thing, you know, go ahead, because there are movies that are in multiple movies in one genre that are basically the same fucking thing, but they each find their individual way to be entertaining. And maybe you'll find that in this. I guess I sure as fuck didn't. But if that's your thing, then you'll probably think this is fine. The Golden Gate Bridge gets destroyed. How many times does that happen now?
Yeah.
I think it's in... obviously, I didn't see them, but let me take a wild guess here. The Golden Gate Bridge destruction's in the trailer.
Yeah.
Because that's like the ultimate trailer moment for all disaster movies. Or all, you know, attack movies of some sort. What else do we have here? Okay, there's a couple of... Obviously, we have to do a couple of love stories because, you know, killing time. As I told you, Instant Connection guy from The Building, there may or may not be a moment where he gets injured, so Attractive Daughter has to remove her shirt and show her cleavage for the rest of the movie so she can tie him up in a bandage. I'm not saying that happens. You can predict that happens. It might. I don't know. But if you don't want surprises like that spoiled for you, I'm sorry. We have, I really didn't want to go into this, but, oh yeah, there's also, there's a couple, obviously you have action hero and estranged wife with douchey boyfriend. Don't want to spoil anything for you here, but they may or may not get back together amidst the carnage of it all, because you have to have that moment, that we may get more than once in one movie now, where it doesn't matter what's going on. Everybody you know could be dead. Buildings can be dropping like flies all around you. You could be seconds away from being crushed to death before you even realize it. Your whole world is like literally ending. The Giamatti's talking on the news about how we're going to have an earthquake so big here in California that they're going to feel it in the East Coast. So basically, we're all fucked in some way or another. But there is always going to be time for you and your person of the opposite gender you're with, whether it's your, you know, girlfriend or ex-wife or going to be one or the other. There will always be that time to stop right in the middle of all this carnage and death and destruction, to look into each other's eyes and think, man, if we survive this, we are going to fuck so much. And you do it telepathically too.
Yeah.
I mean, you do the stare down forever, and then you do the kiss, and then you're like, yeah, all this, you know, death and destruction and world being torn apart is turning me on. You have to have that scene. And like I said, you may get it more than once this time.
Mm-hmm.
So, because you got, you know, more than one happening. And yes, I've talked about this quite a bit, and it's back again. One of my least favorite cliches of all time is in this goddamn movie, and they really stretched it out this time. They really, really go for it. Do you know exactly the scene I'm talking about? Eventually, you're going to have to deal with water. High water, right? So, once again, I hate if this is a spoiler for you, but I am totally not telling you that there's going to be a major character that is under this water, and is under the water for a little too long, and is eventually pulled out, but oh my god, this major character is dead. Let's all stand around and cry and mourn. But don't worry, there's somebody standing by to give her CPR. But, you know, the world is over. This person is dead. This major character is absolutely 100% gone. There is nothing to do. This is the end. And then, eventually, she's going to cough up that water, and we're all going to be all happy and hugging and embracing. And all the carnage is still going on, by the way, but fuck it, you know. This one person survived with us, we're good.
Forget about all the other dead people in town right now.
I mean, they try to liven it up, like, the CPR happens, like, amidst an action scene, but... no, I was completely ignoring that, just thinking, this fucking thing again. But, you know, I wasn't surprised, because by this point, this is the only cliche that hadn't been checked off yet. So,
that's true.
You know, it was only a matter of time. So, yes, I was a little confident, because I think, you know, Dwayne Johnson's one of the most likable stars working now in any genre. And he can kind of bring life to pretty much anything, but... This was a hard thing to save. There is, I forgot to mention the Kylie Minogue cameo. I don't know what the fuck that was about. Do you want to talk some sloppy exposition? There's actually a moment in this movie, and I actually had an argument with somebody today about this, or last night about this, but here's the thing. I get that this character that Kylie Minogue plays, mind you, I'm having to go into detail about this character. I swear to God, this character exists for 20 seconds. We meet this character for the first time and the last time in the span of, like, 1 minute. She's the sister of Johan Gruffud. Did I mention Johan Gruffud was a rich douchey boyfriend?
You didn't mention him by name.
Yeah, he plays rich douchey boyfriend.
Yeah.
Kylie Minogue is his sister, and her only... We're supposed to kind of... I think we're supposed to set up that they're not just... He's not just rich douchey boyfriend. He comes from rich douchey family, and they're all like that. So, the reason this meeting... She's going to hang out with his sister, who she's never met before. And the big joke of the scene is she's a huge bitch. And the way they play this out is they've been building up for the whole movie up to this point that there's a tragic backstory with Dwayne Johnson and Carla Gugino here. But they keep hinting at it, and then they don't say what it is, because you're supposed to go like, oh, this is straight up character development. I am very invested in these people. Yeah.
That's why I laughed.
That's totally how I was thinking. So finally, we are trying to do this is funny because this character is bitchy thing, and here's your exposition suddenly in the weirdest fucking way possible. To amp up the bitch factor on Kylie Minogue's character, this is her line. She's getting to know Carla Gugino, and she says, okay, so you have the one daughter. You had another daughter that drowned, though, right? And she delivers it like that, too.
She's Dean Cain from this year.
Yeah, what was that movie? He was in God's Not Dead.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
The fuck you 'cause you have cancer movie.
Exactly.
Okay, so, that's what that scene exists for. And that's it. Because right as soon as that line is said, the earthquake hits. And we never see her again. We don't even get the joy of watching her die. She's, like, escorted off. It's... I don't know. So, yeah, this is the kind of movie that we're dealing with. I'm really not a fan. Like I said, I was trying there because, you know, Dwayne Johnson can really bring something likable to movies.
Yeah. And
it's a genre that sets itself up to, you know, to not be taken seriously, and you can just watch it for fun and stuff like that. But there's not a whole lot of fun to be had here. They also do the fucking laser pointer bullshit. You know, where they just, oh, hey, this character has this insignificant object. Don't worry, this won't come back and be useful later. It's fucking dumbass shit.
All this stuff in Last Action Hero.
So, I don't know where you're getting Last Action Hero from this. No, the thing is, I don't know, okay? I just don't understand, like, maybe I don't know. Why is this movie happening? What did they want? What?
Want to put Dwayne Johnson in a disaster movie?
I get he's capable of a lot better things, though. Okay, all it is to confuse people that think it's gonna be a Grand Theft Auto movie. That's I guess. So that's That's what this is. There's really no point for this to exist. Every single scene of this movie is something you have seen before. And they kind of do, and yeah, this is one of those movies where generally you look for, you have to look for the character developments, because you can't just say, hey, this movie has a bunch of action and stuff like that. You have to, put people in peril and feel real danger, all that shit. Yeah. But the issue here is every single time they attempted character development, I was really, really bored out of my mind, and I don't know if that's just because they just used constant cliches. They didn't put any thought into it whatsoever, or the backstory is kind of like the prologue to Ordinary People, which is weird. But there's just nothing to give a shit about going on here, so I don't care.
Yeah, midway through, I just stopped caring completely.
Okay. Well, we're not getting any better. I think we're going to go ahead and do the Human Centipede 3 now. Final sequence.
Let's hope so.
First we had, what was it? First sequence?
Yeah, I
and
believe
then
so.
Full sequence.
Yeah.
And this is final sequence. Because you want to do a trilogy.
Because this movie needed a trilogy.
Oh, yeah. Well, you do something outrageous to get attention, and then you try so hard to get attention, you do in fact end up with a cult following because people are just that easy. And then you make more, and you just really, really drag it out as much as you can, because as soon as this ends, you have no more purpose in the movie industry. That's basically why there's 3 of them.
We're not talking about Sharknado yet, AJ. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
As Ron Weasley once put it, murder me, Harry. Murder me. Okay. So, because this movie exists, it had to be dealt with.
Yep. That's the best way to put it, too.
So, here's the thing. It was basically that thing where I try to see as many movies as I possibly can, but honestly, I probably wouldn't have bothered if I hadn't already seen the other 2. So, just like I saw the first Atlas Shrugged, and I haven't seen the others since. It just didn't matter anymore.
You didn't even review Atlas Shrugged on this channel at all.
I don't give one goddamn fuck who John Gold is. So,
neither do most people, AJ.
Okay. So, they're continuing to try to do the meta thing. They're really Scream 4ing this. Remember the opening of Scream 4?
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to do that shit. Because what happened was, we had the first one, and that happened. And then we had the second movie, where the character in that movie saw the first movie and wanted to make a Human Centipede of his own. And now we have this third movie, where the 2 characters in it, it's the warden of a prison and his accountant. And the warden is the professor from the first movie, and his accountant is Martin from the second movie. And the movie begins with the movie starts with Martin watching the end of the first one. And us watching Martin watch the end of the first one is actually the warden in 3 watching the end of 2. There, you see, Scream 4 vibes, you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but I like Scream 4.
Which means it's the same gimmick.
I gotcha.
And naturally, immediately, this warden character exists solely for shock value. And he's the person we spend the whole hour and 42 minutes of this movie with. So if you love that guy in the first movie, you get to spend a whole hour and 42 minutes with a new character that he and Tom Six made together. And this guy is just entertainment poison.
That's a good way to put it.
What happens here is, okay, I'm just a disclaimer here, please. I'm not trying to tell you how to feel about it. I wouldn't do that. I'm just trying to project what I'm thinking about it, and then you can go and do your own thing. You can make your own decision. You can watch it and love it, or you can hate it, or you can get away from it as far as possible, whatever you want to do. But just please do me one favor if you happen to be watching this right now. If you feel like you might be on the same page as me with this, I assume you can see where I'm headed by now.
Yeah.
You saw the star amount in the description, I imagine. Please do me a favor. Everything that I tell you that happens in this movie, just try not to react. Because if you react, Tom Six is somewhere jacking off to the fact that you are reacting to his desperate, pathetic attempt at shock value. So please, just try to empty your mind. Don't keep Mr. Stay Puffed out. Just just completely and totally clear your mind. We're going back into Poltergeist territory as well. They already know too much. Stop thinking right now.
True.
Just don't do anything. Just hear it and then let it go. Okay. For starters, he is extreme. This is the starter, by the way. There's 2 things you have to start with about this guy. He's incredibly racist, and he uses his secretary for sexual degradation. And if you have trouble believing that he uses his secretary as for sexual degradation, she's played by Brie Olson. It's a lot more believable now, isn't it? Okay. So, the story with that is that he apparently got her dad out of prison. So she basically has to do him sexual favors or he's gonna kill her dad or something. There's an actual scene where she gives him a blowjob and she's just kind of sitting there with it in her mouth, shaking her head. And he tells her that her dad will die if she does not swallow. Second thing. He gets an imported package delivered to him, and inside this, I can't remember they said it came from like Africa or something. I did not realize that this word had a plural term. I never thought I would use this term with a plural on it, but inside this jar are, I'm about to say this on a camera right now, and this is going to be on YouTube. It's a jar full of clitorises from actual human women that have been severed and fried, and he eats them like candy. So there's that. And we learn that he's all about bringing back medieval torture techniques. That's what he really, really wants. So we have remember Tiny Lister, Debo from Friday? He's one of the prisoners, because this is the sequel to Dark Knight, I guess. And he, says racial slurs and then breaks his arm in half at the elbow. Yeah, this guy, the guy that plays the warden, I looked this up. You can't tell looking at him to give him credit, but the dude is 73 years old, if I did my math right. Breaks Debo from Friday's arm in half.
Zeus would turn him into dust if it was real.
But we're not done yet. He then takes another prisoner and castrates him, and because it's a human centipede movie, this castration takes place on screen. And then later, the balls are fried, and he has them for lunch. And then he just goes on, and he's very, very sexually oriented. He is constantly degrading the secretary by saying stuff like, he orders her, "I want my nutsack empty by lunchtime." And then he goes to his doctor. This is a real line, seriously. He goes to his doctor, the doctor is checking his heart, and the doctor asks, "Are you under stress right now?" And his response is to scream, "Stress for pussy." I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't even know what that means. I think they just want, because here's the problem. You see what I mean by this character solely exists just for shock value?
This is a joke.
Everything I just said to you is only the first 30 minutes. And this character is like this. Every single line he has, he is screaming. Because he's crazy, if you didn't get that yet. There's about an hour and 15 minutes left at this point. And the Centipede hadn't even been discussed yet. But that's the thing, is the movie is an hour and 42 minutes. It's the longest one. And this is another problem that I have. I am under the impression that this is the longest one, because I did actually read a quote from Tom Six where he said, this one is going to be the craziest, sickest one yet. Well, number one, he failed immediately because this one is not sicker than 2. Not by a long shot. And secondly, you can tell by the end of this that he thinks he has made this triumphant masterpiece. The national anthem is the end credit song. That's the kind of movie he thought he made.
It works in The Purge, but it doesn't work here.
So, here's the thing. Now, you have to get from this point to when he does the Centipede, but the issue here is, at an hour and 42 minutes, we're well over an hour in when the Centipede thing even comes into it. Which means there's a big gap here, where we just have fucking time to kill. So the idea is to just keep saying, after that first half hour I told you about, the idea is to go an entire more half hour saying, ooh, look how evil this guy is. So we get a bunch of rape, we get body parts being blown everywhere, we get him having a nightmare about getting stabbed and then getting fucked in the hole he was just stabbed in. And they're just killing time. There is a scene in this movie where he tries to strangle one of the inmates, and he doesn't even succeed, and it just goes on forever. It felt like an eternity, and it's just like, wow, they are just making nothing happen now to make this movie longer. Just nothing. There's one long scene where he gets drunk and he just sits around and talks to himself. And they're just making nothing happen. They took a movie that's supposed to be pure shock value, using shit. This is a movie where a dude eats clitoris as like their candy, and I'm fucking bored out of my mind. What does that say? It's just... And, you know, if he's not done sucking his own dick yet, naturally the characters have to get permission to copy the movies and make their own human centipede. So what do you think this means? We get a Tom Six cameo as himself. God. He rolls in with his hat and his sunglasses, and everybody is all over him telling him what a genius he is. I get it. Okay, listen, I know people who probably like this shit are probably saying something to the screen right now, and yes, I get it. I think it's pretty clear in this movie he's going for satire. But just because you set out for that, and you kind of set out to be self-aware, does not make your movie any less shitty. If it's that transparent. Now, and this is another reason you just know the kind of movie he knows he was making. The person that they have to run this by is the governor. And the governor in this movie is fucking Eric Roberts. I'm sure Eric Roberts is a nice guy and everything, but talking strictly in movie terms, a human centipede movie that has Eric Roberts in it, can you get any lower? I mean, I actually read an interview recently too where he actually like praised all the straight-to-video shit he does in Bash the Dark Knight. I mean, I don't get it, but this is just what this movie is, okay? And it just succeeds at nothing. At absolutely nothing that it sets out for. And it's trying for so much. It's seriously, this whole series is like one of the most try-hard things you can possibly find in the movie industry, and that is fucking saying something.
It's true.
There's a lot of try-hard bullshit out there. This, shock value wannabe bullshit. This stuff is... There's all kinds of this shit out there. There are foreign movies you can watch where this shit is mild. Like I said, this one's not even sicker than the second one. There are no newborn babies' heads crushed under gas pedals in this movie. That immediately makes it less sick. So, yeah. There's just no reason for this. And I'm gonna tell you something. I said this about a few horror movies last year, actually. But I'm gonna throw this out there, too. This is not a movie that will make any, from me, personally, I mean, this will not be a movie that makes any bottom of the year list. Because that's almost catering to it. Putting this on a worst of the year list is acknowledging its existence. And that's what it exists, is to say, hey, look at me. That's all this movie exists for. And saying it's one of the worst movies of the year would be giving it that. So, pretty much after this review is over, which is going to be really fucking soon, this is the last you'll hear about this movie on this channel, I imagine.
Yeah.
So...
Considering there's no way I'm watching it, yeah, definitely.
Yes. So, having said that, we'll go ahead and end that here. Our last movie is Aloha. Cameron Crowe's new movie. Yes, this is the movie that was known for about 5 years as Untitled Cameron Crowe Project. It was really recent it got the title Aloha.
It's true.
It was Untitled Cameron Crowe Project forever. I think, like, at the release of We Bought a Zoo, this movie immediately appeared on the radar. And now, this is what it is. And holy shit, this movie's quite a mess, isn't it? This movie's all over the damn place, but let's go one point at a time. We start, I don't know what he was going for here, but it starts with the classic Columbia logo. I have no idea what the purpose of that was, because well, here's the thing. I heard a line. We got this trailer a lot, so there were lines in the trailer that I remember hearing that stuck in my memory, which normally doesn't happen, but here it did. And one of the lines in the trailer is not in the movie, and that is Alec Baldwin talking about Alec Baldwin in a big spoiler scene. That Alec Baldwin scene that you saw at the beginning of the trailer is the end of the movie.
Yep.
And he says the line, I remember this vividly, he says the line, "You're gonna wear this like Flava Flav wears a clock." And when I heard that, my immediate thought was, okay, either Cameron Crowe really took a nosedive as a writer, or this movie's set in like 1991. Pretty sure the movie's present day. I'm not totally sure. So that maybe would have possibly explained the reason for the classic Columbia logo, but I'm still not. I got nothing as far as that's concerned. This is the kind of movie we're dealing with. One of the most fascinating things to talk about is why the fuck the logo at the beginning is the way it is. But there's more to talk about, so let's keep going. It kind of it sets itself up as a love triangle movie. After, like, 2 seconds after it set itself up as a space movie. So I don't know. I think people going into this have no idea about the space plot. By the way,
probably not.
It's basically a love triangle, but it's not even a triangle. It bounces around. But mainly, we have Bradley Cooper, who's in the military, and he's come back, and there's Rachel McAdams, the ex, but she's with John Krasinski, the new husband, and then we have Emma Stone, the military watchdog, who's there to, like, tell him what to do. And love blossoms? What the fuck? Let's talk about this beginning first. This first 5 minutes or so is a whole clusterfuckery of shit. The first thing we see is the cast list. We've got we've got Cooper, we've got Stone, we've got Cooper, we've got Krasinski, but then we've got like Bill Murray and Danny McBride and Alec Baldwin, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple of people. And this movie is hell-bent on making sure you see all these people as soon as possible so you know exactly what their purpose is. And it's like they're all fighting for the camera's attention. It just keeps bouncing around, because we get Cooper narrating about space, and then suddenly he's on Rachel McAdams, and then we go to Danny McBride, and then we're introduced. Rachel McAdams comes into the scene, and I don't know if these two characters even know each other, but they're talking now, but they both know the main character. That's the point. And then suddenly, in the middle of this conversation, we cut to Emma Stone's introduction, which is in a totally different place. And then we come back, and Bradley Cooper comes up to Danny McBride and Rachel McAdams, and they have a little conversation that's really, really forced dialogue and exposition and backstory. And then suddenly Danny McBride's like, oh, okay, now I'm explaining who Emma Stone is. And the camera pans right there, and Emma Stone has been standing here.
Trying to get his attention.
Jesus Christ. And then he goes into another room, and we meet Bill Murray. He just walks into another place, and there's Bill Murray. So, immediately I'm confused as fuck what is happening here. And then Bill Murray has a whole subplot about space that just comes in and out of this movie as it pleases. Which is just weird. Because the two there's no relation at all. But anyway. So that happens. And then, and by the way, while everybody's trying to fight for the camera's attention here, remember how I said we have Rachel McAdams and Danny McBride and Bradley Cooper, and they're all talking, and then suddenly Danny McBride says, oh, by the way, here's Emma Stone, and then Emma Stone just appears when a camera pans over. When the camera pans back over to Rachel McAdams and Cooper, Danny McBride has vanished into thin air.
Like you're saying that it's a bad thing.
Well...
But I understand the context of the story.
But then he magically reappears in the room with Bill Murray that's right over here. What I'm trying to say is, this movie is not grabbing you from the get-go. And that's an issue. So now let's talk about some of the plot points here. Let's talk about Emma Stone first, okay? Because I would love more than anything to be able to tell you that, as usual, I have no bad things to say about Emma Stone. I will say that she is a weird casting choice here, I think. She's not bad in it. It's just the idea of casting her in this part. She's just not somebody I would have thought of. And I don't necessarily mean it's like, oh, Cameron Crowe on the inspired casting. Not really. But Emma Stone is so wonderful. She is able to charm her way out of this miscasting. And she's able to make her character somebody that you can like, despite the fact that you keep saying, why Emma Stone, though? So, she managed to work that out and save the movie's ass, I imagine, because if it had been another actress that was totally not right for the part, that didn't have the charm of Emma Stone, this movie would have been fucked beyond repair. And then we have, it's worth noting the only two standout people in this movie really are Emma Stone and Bill Murray. Even though I don't like Bill Murray's plotline, and it just seems really fucking random and just shoehorned in occasionally, I do like his performance in the movie. He's it kind of seems like he totally doesn't give a fuck about being here, but he somehow found a way to make it fit his character, and it was fun to see him on screen. I liked it. Like, whenever he would walk on, like, even if it's not a well-developed character, this is just the kind of movie where as long as Bill Murray's on screen, you feel some relief that the movie's going to have some life in it. And that always helps. And while we're on the subject of Bill Murray, it's worth noting that there is a scene towards the end where there's a lot of audio happening at once. And you can hear stripes. I thought that was kind of funny. And another thing, speaking of Bill Murray, that fucking kid from St. Vincent is in this too. It's John Krasinski and Rachel McAdams' kid. And they have stuff in common because he's, all into space and sci-fi shit too. And the way they express this now, I'm not quite sure what kind of kids Cameron Crowe knows. And I totally get a kid that's into space and all that shit. This kid, you saw St. Vincent. This kid, is like, what, maybe 10 or 12 or something?
Something like that.
The kid has a Barbarella poster in his room. Oh, okay. Like, this, I don't know, maybe fucking Gravity or something? Or Apollo 13 or something? You know what? Never mind. I'm not going to spend too much time on that now. Now, here's the problem here, is, going away from them, now we have the Krasinski-Rachel McAdams storyline. And here's the issue, is we have Bradley Cooper, who's all sad and shit, because he's alone, and his heart's broken because he's still in love with Rachel McAdams, and now she's married to John Krasinski, and they have a happy family, and she's off limits now. But, here's the problem. The movie doesn't really give us anybody to root for in this situation. I have no idea who we're supposed to feel sorry for and who we're supposed to root against. I have no idea. Or if we're even supposed to feel that way. I don't know. Because there's really nobody doing things right here. Because here's... Okay, let's narrow it down. We have 3 people involved in this. We have Cooper, we have McAdams, and we have Krasinski. Okay? Now, we have Cooper. Okay? We want to root for Cooper because he's our main character, I assume. I have to assume this because I'm not feeling it myself. So, here's the thing. We kind of have to feel bad for him in a way, because he's so isolated. He's so, he's, an emotional rebel type. But we don't really get too many details, but all we know, the only information we know about this we get from McAdams, and we just have to take her word for it, I guess. Because the movie doesn't say anything else, that Cooper is the reason the relationship failed. He's the one that fucked it up. Okay. Secondly, we have McAdams. So, what McAdams does here, maybe we're supposed to side with her. I don't know. Let's find out. Let's examine this character and see if she's worth fighting for. So apparently she left the Cooper relationship because it was fucking bad. Okay. So she goes and she settles for Krasinski. And they have apparently a terrible marriage. And on top of this, I won't give too much away, I guess, but McAdams here has a life-altering secret that only she knows. And that is emotionally crippling news for a couple of people.
Yeah.
That should probably be aware. And she is the only person that knows. She says, specifically, for an entire... Well, that's kind of a spoiler, but for a very long time, she knew this, and nobody else did. And she kept it within herself. Watching all these lives kind of be broken in the process. And lastly, we have Krasinski. Another thing McAdams is kind of doing is she's married to Krasinski and all that, and everything's supposed to be great and shit. Apparently they've been together for quite a long time. But she is so openly into Cooper still. It's right out there in the open for every fucking buddy, including Krasinski, to see. And it just doesn't... They're fucking kids are witness to this. So there's that. So root for McAdams if you want to. And then lastly we have Krasinski. And Krasinski's not exactly a ray of sunshine either.
No.
We have they kind of build him up like he's this awesome husband, father, soldier dude. But then we realize, number one, he's very, very not into communication with his wife. He just kind of wants to keep leaving and not talk to her. Okay. And then we have this moment where, yeah, I know, I said, she takes the Cooper thing out there and just throws it out there. But the thing about, this is kind of complicated. It just kind of have, this is just kind of like a personal thing. You watch it and you kind of feel the way you feel about it. This is the way I took this scene. We have Cooper and McAdams in the kitchen, and they're talking about, oh my god, there's still love between us, and I don't care who the fuck knows it, even though it makes us look like shitty people. And then Krasinski comes in with his beer, and he does a lot of body language thing, and then he asserts his dominance on Cooper, and then he walks out. Now, I get it. I get the position that he is in right now. But, number one, he is clearly a neglecting douchebag, and has no intention of fixing this. And number two, I get the whole, saying, like, dude, why are you in my house with this love still blossoming bullshit? But for some reason, the way this scene played off, I got really negative vibes from that character. Like, he just kind of, like, I understand where he was coming from, but the guy, like, oozes douchebag.
Yeah.
So, who are we hoping is happy at the end of this? I don't...
The kids?
But then here's the thing. Talking about this, we gotta go back to the other love story now. With Emma Stone. I am totally lost on this. Okay, here's what happens. We are introduced to Stone, and she is the no-nonsense, watchdog military girl. And she's, doing her thing. And, she's annoying the shit out of Cooper with her protocol and shit. And then he listens in on her phone conversation with her mom where she's basically just bashing the shit out of him. So she's bashing the shit out of him when she was already annoying him. So clearly they are not on the same page here. But then the very next scene is them walking through the woods like they have an instant connection. What? How many deleted scenes were in between that? They're just walking through the woods doing their ooh you and ooh you thing, and then just like they're in love. It just happens. There's no... I mean, I don't know. What is this movie doing? I don't get it. And then we have, so we have all those plot points. When we have the love story plot points, everything is obvious from the word go. We know exactly where all this shit is going. It's the by the numbers bullshit that just does its thing. And this is what I just couldn't wrap my head around the thought of. Because it felt cheap for starters. And it didn't feel like a Cameron Crowe movie. I know a lot of people said that about We Bought a Zoo as well. There are some things in We Bought a Zoo that are miscalculated, but there are some really genuine moments in We Bought a Zoo. Really genuinely emotional scenes. That hit really hard. There is not a single ounce of passion in this movie. I didn't feel like Crowe was into this at all, and it was in its infancy inside his head, and he made it happen, and then he wrote it down, and then he got a crew and actors, and he made it. But it did not seem like he was into it at all. We Bought a Zoo was 4 years ago. It's like he felt like he just needed to be doing something. So he just threw this mishmash together, and it's a movie now that people have to pay to see. And I don't know. It's just, and a lot of the time it just feels like nothing is happening. It's so directionless. And then, like I said, they kind of run out of ideas, so they bring the space shit back in. And then that's a whole thing that totally lost me. And they used the space bullshit as the conflict between him and Stone. Because, that has to happen. That absolutely must happen. Where they have the conflict where she's like, I don't like you anymore. He's like, I don't like you anymore either. You drive away and cry until we decide to be happy at the end. Go away. And and we have to resolve that and wait for all this to happen. This movie had so many ending shots. Oh my god, there were like 20 ending shots in this movie. And it ended on the weird one. Because I was like, that's the ending shot. Yes, fade out. Oh, okay. Oh, that'd be a nice ending shot. Yes, let's go with that. Fine. Okay, and it just keeps going. And then finally it fades out, and it's like, what the fuck? Why that shot? Of all those other shots you had, you waited You made us sit here and wait until that one happened, and that's where you fade out. What in the fuck are you doing? The movie could have been better. It is certainly lacking the charm the Crow used to have. A lot of people say he's like really, really going downhill. I like We Bought a Zoo. It's fine. I think he's had another one in here, but that I forgot existed, but I don't remember which one it is. Oh, that one. Yeah, that's its own video soon. Yeah, that Cameron Crowe movie nobody likes.
This guy right here. I am probably the only fan of that movie that exists. Well, no, I know there's more than that, because I know personal people that like it.
We are ending this now. So, did I miss anything? I think that's about it. Okay. Yes.
I guess we agree to disagree this week, that's all I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, as always, continue to watch the regular segments here on Pop.
We should remember to do Star Mouse this time.
I'm going to.
Okay.
Continue to watch our regular segments on Pop. And before we do our regular outro, I wanted to do something that we missed last week somehow, some way. We just glossed over it. Star Mounts time. San Andreas. Gee, many Christmas. I was not expecting that one. Human Centipede 3.
Keep in mind, Ebert Ebert did 0 to 4. I just do 1 through 4. 1 is the absolute lowest. Just I like to refresh that every now and then.
Aloha.
When we left the theater, which was an hour ago, it was 2. But after reevaluating it, we're going 1.5.
Well, I agree with you on one of those.
Okay.
So, tomorrow, Gaming with Ash returns. Sunday, brand new verses. Your Cryptic Comment is Hunting. And we're going to be watching Entourage on Tuesday. We're going to be watching Insidious on Thursday.
As well as
something else that doesn't need to be mentioned. And we're going to be putting
Spy.
all 3 of those on the review for Friday, which we're actually getting at super early on Friday because of the way that the schedule lines up. So that works really well. So I'm doing a Horror Nights podcast with James, Tristan, and Alex. That's coming up on Wednesday. Stay tuned for that. And that's pretty much all we've got for this week. AJ, any parting words?